They say the worst part of jumping is the moment before you go. Standing in that open door at 1,200 feet, wind screaming past, engines roaring, knowing that in a few seconds you'll be falling through the darkness over enemy territory. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is what happens after you land. I was 23 years old on June 5th, 1944, Staff Sergeant with the 101st Airborne Division, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, Easy Company. We called ourselves the Screaming Eagles, and we thought we were invincible. Young, trained to perfection, loaded down with weapons and ammunition, and absolute confidence that we were going to liberate France. The confidence lasted about as long as the jump. I grew up in Sacramento, California. My father ran a hardware store, and I'd spent my childhood reading about the Great War, about heroes and glory, and making the world safe for democracy. When Pearl Harbor happened, I was 19, working at the store, trying to figure out what to do with my life. The decision made itself. I enlisted the next day. The Army offered me a choice, regular infantry or airborne. The airborne paid $50 extra a month for jump duty. Hazard pay, they called it. I was young and broke and thought jumping out of airplanes sounded like an adventure. Jump school at Fort Benning was hell. They ran us until we collapsed, made us do push-ups in the Georgia mud, taught us how to fall without breaking our legs. Out of the 100 men who started my class, 63 made it through. The rest washed out or got injured. I made it, earned my silver wings, and got assigned to the 506. We trained for a year. Jumping, shooting, close combat, navigation, demolitions. They told us we were going to be the tip of the spear, the first men into occupied France. We'd jump in before the beach landings, secure key objectives, raise hell behind enemy lines, make it easier for the boys coming ashore. Made it sound like an adventure, like we were going to be heroes. Lieutenant Mathers, our platoon leader, was more honest. He'd been a history teacher before the war, read everything about airborne operations. He told us straight. Gentlemen, the mortality rate for paratroopers in combat drops is roughly 30%. That means 1 in 3 of you won't make it through the first day. Those are just the statistics. Reality might be worse. Someone asked him why he volunteered for airborne if the odds were so bad. Same reason you did, he said. Because someone has to go first. We shipped out to England in September of 43. Spent 9 months training, waiting, preparing for the invasion we all knew was coming. The waiting was worse than the training. You had time to think, time to imagine what combat would really be like, time to wonder if you'd measure up. I got close to my squad during those months. There was Jimmy Rodriguez from Texas, always cracking jokes, could find something funny in anything. Mike Sullivan from Boston, tough Irish kid who'd grown up fighting. Tommy Chen from San Francisco, quiet guy who was probably the best shot in the company. And Sergeant Frank Miller, our squad leader, regular Army, had jumped in North Africa and Sicily. He'd seen real combat, knew what we were heading into. Frank took me aside one night in May, a few weeks before D-Day. We both knew something big was coming, could feel it in the air. Listen, kid, he said, when we go, when the real thing happens, everything you trained for is going to go out the window. The drop will be chaos. The fighting will be chaos. Men are going to die, and there's nothing you can do about it. Your job is simple. Stay alive, find your unit, complete the mission. In that order. Yes, Sergeant. And one more thing. He looked at me hard. Don't try to be a hero. Heroes die first. Just do your job and get through it. I nodded. Thought I understood what he meant. I didn't understand anything. I hit the ground hard. Not the open field I'd trained for, but a tree. My chute caught in the branches, left me dangling 15 feet off the ground, swinging like a target in a shooting gallery. I could hear gunfire, close, rifles, machine guns, the distinctive crack of German Mausers. Somewhere nearby, men were fighting and dying. I hung there in my harness, struggling with the quick release, trying to get down before someone saw me. My combat knife was on my right leg. I got it out, started cutting the risers. Stupid, dangerous, but I had no choice. I cut through the last one and dropped, hit the ground wrong, felt something twist in my ankle. Pain shot up my leg. I lay there in the darkness, trying to get my bearings. Hedgerows everywhere, thick, tall walls of earth and vegetation that divided the fields. Nothing like the maps we'd studied. I had no idea where I was, where my unit was, where the enemy was. A shape moved in the darkness. I brought my rifle up, finger on the trigger. "Flash," a voice whispered, the challenge code. "Thunder," I responded. The password. A figure emerged from the shadows. Tommy Chen from my squad. His face was pale, eyes wide. "Jesus Christ, am I glad to see you. I got separated from everyone. Have you seen the others?" "No, just landed. Where the hell are we?" "No idea. Miles from the drop zone, I think. I've been hearing fighting all around, but I can't tell which way to go." We decided to move toward the sound of heaviest gunfire. Logic said that's where our boys would be, trying to secure objectives. We moved through the hedgerows, every sense on high alert, expecting German soldiers around every corner. We found Jimmy Rodriguez in the third field. He was dead, landed in a tree like me, but he'd been shot while trying to cut himself down. Still hanging in his harness, riddled with bullets. His face was frozen in surprise, like he couldn't believe this was happening. Tommy vomited. I wanted to, but couldn't. Just stood there looking at Jimmy, at the body of the guy who'd been cracking jokes 2 hours ago. He was supposed to be invincible. We all were. We kept moving. Found 3 more paratroopers, none from our unit. One was badly injured, broken leg from the landing, maybe broken back too. We couldn't carry him, couldn't stay with him. We gave him morphine, his weapon, and left him in a hedgerow with a promise to send help. I knew we'd never see him again. So did he. By dawn, we'd linked up with maybe 20 guys from various units. No officers, no clear chain of command, no idea where we were or where we needed to be. Just lost soldiers trying to find the war. The weeks after D-Day blurred together, fighting through hedgerows, taking villages, losing men. The 101st was supposed to be pulled off the line after a few days. We fought for 33 days straight. I stopped learning names. New replacements would arrive. Fresh-faced kids from the States who thought they were ready. They'd introduce themselves, try to make friends. I'd nod and forget their names immediately because most of them would be dead within a week anyway. Better not to know them. Better not to care. Mike Sullivan died in week 3, stepped on a mine clearing a field. 1 second he was there, the next he was just pieces. We collected what we could, buried him in a field we couldn't remember the name of. The guys who survived, we changed. Stopped talking about home, about after the war, about anything beyond the next day. Developed a 1,000-yard stare, moved through combat like automatons. Efficient professional killers who'd forgotten how to be anything else, Sergeant Miller noticed. Pulled me aside after a particularly bad firefight where we'd lost 4 men. "You're scaring the new guys," he said. "Good. Scared keeps you alive. You need to feel something, kid. You shut down completely. You'll break. I'm not breaking. I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. None of us were fine. We were just functional, which was different. We could fight and kill and follow orders, but the part of us that made us human was gone, buried somewhere in Normandy with all the others who didn't make it. By the time we got pulled off the line in mid-July, Easy Company had taken 70% casualties. Most of my original squad was dead. Jimmy Rodriguez, Tommy Chen, Mike Sullivan, Sergeant Miller, hit by artillery on our last day, died screaming while we tried to stop the bleeding. Gone, all gone. The replacements who'd survived thought we were heroes. Hardened veterans who'd taken the beaches, liberated France. They didn't understand that we weren't heroes. We were just the ones who hadn't died yet. June 5th, 1944. Evening. They loaded us onto C-47s at airfields all across southern England. 64 men per plane, loaded down with so much equipment we could barely move. Main chute, reserve chute, rifle, ammunition, grenades, rations, entrenching tool, gas mask, first aid kit. I was carrying over 100 pounds of gear. The plan was simple in theory. We'd jump after midnight, land in Normandy behind Utah Beach, secure key bridges and causeways, disrupt German reinforcements. The beach landings would start at dawn. By then, we'd have the inland routes secured. In theory, the planes took off at 22:30 hours, over 800 aircraft, carrying 13,000 paratroopers, the largest airborne operation in history. We were going to change the course of the war. Inside the plane, it was too loud to talk. The engines roared, the aircraft shook, and we sat there in the darkness, each man alone with his thoughts. Some guys tried to sleep, some prayed. Jimmy Rodriguez was making jokes nobody could hear. Tommy Chen just stared at nothing, face blank. I checked my gear for the 100th time. Chute straps tight, rifle secured, grenades accessible. Everything by the book, like checking would make a difference when I was falling through the darkness over German-occupied France. We crossed the English Channel. The plane started taking evasive action, banking, diving, climbing. Anti-aircraft fire had found us. I could hear the flak bursting outside, could feel the concussions when shells exploded close. The aircraft next to us took a direct hit. 1 second it was there. The next it was gone. Just a ball of flame falling into the channel. 64 men gone in an instant. The red light came on. 6 minutes to drop zone. Sergeant Miller stood up, hooked his static line to the cable. Stand up. Hook up. We stood, hooked our static lines, checked the man in front of us. The ritual was automatic, drilled into us through hundreds of practice jumps. But this wasn't practice. The plane was taking heavy fire now. I could hear rounds punching through the fuselage, could see holes appearing in the metal. The pilot was going too fast, taking evasive action, throwing us around like we were on a carnival ride. The green light came on. Go, 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 Miller screamed. The jump master shoved the first man out the door, then the second, then the third. The line moved fast, no hesitation, no time to think. 1 second, you're in the plane, the next you're in the door, the next you're gone. I jumped. The slipstream hit me like a wall, spun me around, tumbling, disorienting. I counted 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and then the chute deployed with a jerk that nearly knocked the wind out of me. For a moment, it was peaceful. Floating in the darkness, the only sound, the wind and the distant rumble of engines. I could see parachutes all around me, white flowers blooming in the night sky. Could see tracers arcing up from the ground, searching. Then I looked down and realized we were way off target. The fields below were wrong, the rivers were wrong, everything was wrong. The pilots had dropped us too fast, too scattered, miles from our designated drop zones. We were lost before we even landed. June 6th, D-Day. The invasion we'd trained for, prepared for, dreamed about. For the boys on the beaches, it was hell. For us inland, it was chaos. We spent 3 days trying to reach our objectives, fighting through hedgerows, never knowing if the next field held friends or enemies. The bocage country of Normandy was a defender's paradise. Every hedgerow was a fortress, every field a potential kill zone. The Germans were dug in, knew the terrain, and were fighting hard. We took casualties constantly. Snipers, machine gun nests, mortar fire, artillery. Men would be walking next to you 1 second, dead the next. The hedgerows swallowed sound, made it impossible to tell where fire was coming from. You'd hear a shot, see someone go down, and have no idea which direction to shoot back. On June 8th, we finally found what was left of Easy Company. Out of the 140 men who'd jumped, maybe 90 had made it to the rally point. The rest were dead, wounded, captured, or still lost somewhere in the countryside. Sergeant Miller had made it, but he'd taken shrapnel in his shoulder. Lieutenant Mathers was dead, killed in the first hour after landing. Tommy Chen was with me the whole time. We'd become inseparable, watching each other's backs, sharing what little food and water we had. He was from San Francisco, had parents who ran a restaurant in Chinatown. He talked about them constantly, about the food they'd make, about going home after the war. On June 10th, we were clearing a small village. Tommy was on point, moving up a narrow street. I was 10 yards behind him. A German machine gun opened up from a second-story window. Tommy went down immediately. I saw the rounds hit him, saw him collapse. I ran to him, dragged him into cover. He'd been hit 3 times, chest, abdomen, leg, blood everywhere. His eyes were wide, terrified. "I'm hit," he said, like he couldn't believe it. "I'm hit bad." I tried to stop the bleeding, but there was too much of it. Called for a medic, but the nearest one was 2 streets away, pinned down by fire. Tommy was coughing up blood, his breathing wet and labored. "Tell my parents," he whispered. Tell them I wasn't scared." But he was scared, terrified. We both knew he was dying, and there was nothing I could do except hold his hand and lie to him. "You're going to be fine," I said. "Medic's coming. You're going to make it." He died anyway, right there in that French street, far from home, far from his family's restaurant, far from everything that had made him Tommy Chen. Just another casualty in a war that was grinding us all into nothing. I sat there for a minute, still holding his hand, and something inside me just broke. Not in a dramatic way. More like something essential had been turned off. The part that felt things, that cared, that believed any of this mattered. Gone. I left Tommy's body there and kept fighting. That's what you did. You kept going because stopping meant dying, and dying meant letting down the men who were still alive. They sent us back to England to refit, rest, absorb replacements. Told us we'd done good work, accomplished the mission, made a difference. They gave us medals, promotions, time off. I spent most of it drunk. We went back into combat in September, Operation Market Garden. Jumped into Holland, tried to take bridges, got surrounded, took more casualties. Then the Bulge in December, pulled off the line again, thrown into Belgium to stop the German offensive. More fighting, more dying, more friends lost. The war ended in May of 1945. We'd survived, we'd won. We were supposed to celebrate, supposed to be proud of what we'd accomplished. I felt nothing, just empty. I came home in September of 45. Sacramento threw a parade. My father closed the store to attend. My mother cried. Everyone wanted to shake the hand of a war hero. They asked what it was like, jumping into France, fighting the Germans, liberating Europe. I couldn't tell them, couldn't explain what it was like to watch your friends die, to become something less than human, just to survive, to spend 11 months in combat and come out the other side not knowing who you were anymore. So I smiled and told them what they wanted to hear. Brave soldiers fighting for freedom, brotherhood and sacrifice, noble purpose. All the lies we tell ourselves to make war seem like something other than organized murder. For 10 years now, I've been trying to be normal. Got married, had kids, went back to work at my father's store. On the surface, I'm fine, functional, a veteran who came home and moved on with his life. But I'm not fine. I still see them. Jimmy Rodriguez hanging dead in his parachute harness. Tommy Chen bleeding out in that French street, telling me to lie to his parents. Mike Sullivan's body parts scattered across a field. Sergeant Miller dying from artillery wounds, begging for morphine we didn't have. I see them every time I close my eyes. The nightmares come 3 to 4 times a week. I'm back in Normandy, back in the hedgerows, back in the moment when the machine gun opens up and Tommy goes down. Sometimes I save him in the dreams. Sometimes I'm the one who gets hit. I always wake up right before death, heart pounding, covered in sweat. My wife knows something's wrong, but she doesn't know what to do about it. How can she? She wasn't there. Nobody who wasn't there can understand what it does to you, watching boys your age die while you live, becoming something cold and efficient and less than human just to survive another day. I drink too much, work too much, avoid crowds, loud noises, anything that might remind me. The 4th of July is hell. Fireworks sound too much like artillery. I can't watch war movies. They make it look heroic, meaningful, like we were doing something noble instead of just trying not to die. People thank me for my service, tell me I'm a hero, that we saved the world. I wasn't a hero. I was a scared kid who jumped into darkness and watched better men die. I survived through luck and by becoming something I'm not proud of. Something that could kill without feeling, that could step over bodies without flinching, that could watch friends die and keep moving. That's not heroism, that's just survival. And survival isn't victory. The war ended 11 years ago. But for those of us who jumped into Normandy, who fought through the hedgerows, who became something other than human to stay alive, we never came back, not really. Part of me is still in France, still lost in the hedgerows, still trying to find Tommy Chen before the machine gun opens up, still watching Jimmy Rodriguez died in his parachute harness, still turning into that cold, efficient thing that could kill without caring because caring got you killed. They call us the greatest generation. Say we saved the world. Build monuments to our sacrifice. But they don't know what we sacrificed. Not just the men who died, but the men we used to be before we jumped into that darkness. The boys who thought war would be an adventure, who believed in heroes and glory and noble causes. Those boys died in Normandy, along with all the others. What came back was something else. Something that looks human, but doesn't feel human. Something that survived, but can't live. We dropped into the darkness over France on June 6th, 1944. And we're still falling,